Are you looking for advice on how to pick your modules? We've come to the right place, as we're going to share with you some of the most valuable things you should consider when deciding upon which optional modules to pick. I'm going to say it now, the fourth tip is the tip that helped me the most, but it's quite a risky tip to take, so let me know how you feel about it. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, the first tip I'm going to share with you on picking your optional modules applies to those who've already done a term of university. If you haven't, don't worry. Jump to the next tip in the timestamp below and I'll see you in a second. But for those of you that have already done at least a term of university, you can look at the modules you've done well in so far and build it out around those, or those that you've enjoyed doing so far, and add more like-minded modules. So you can keep going down that path and advancing further and enhancing your learning in the areas that you've already seen success in. If you are, however, a first year or new to the course, what I would advise doing is actually picking a broad range of modules. It can be very easy to niche down on just one topic, but if it turns out that you don't like that topic, you're then stuck because you haven't tried anything else. Whereas if you do a broad range of topics and then realise, okay, that was the thing I enjoyed the most, that's okay because you've tried the other things and then you can rule them out. Whereas if you decide, right, I'm going to niche down and only study modules regarding this one subject, and then it turns out you don't like that subject, it's going to be a lot harder for you to change and plan and how you're going to continue your university education because you haven't tried anything else. If you see where I'm going with this? So as the first year is not normally weighted as heavily as the other years, I'd advise experimenting more with your modules, picking a broad range, so again you can niche down at a later date. On that though, in your later years, if there is something that you particularly really want to study, you can go and do so. Some universities allow you to pick at least one module from outside of the school of your learning. So say if you're doing zoology, you could go on and do a philosophy module, you could go and do an economics module, you could go and do a language module. If it's something that interests you, this is the time to study it. Don't feel like you can't pick a different module just because it's not done by your school. It can broaden your learning. So I think employers can really like, because it means you're not thinking the same way as everybody else. You've got that bit of difference about you. And at the same time, you're fulfilling your own happiness by learning about the thing you've always wanted to through that module. Now this fourth tip is the one I mentioned in the intro. And the reason I say it's not for everybody and it's quite risky is because it relies on you having a clear career path. So I'm pretty set on what I want to do long term. So what I've done then is pick the optional modules that I think will help me the most in the future. I've noticed the A-levels that I did at school have helped me quite a bit at university. So I'm hoping the optional modules that I pick now will help me further in my job. Again, it is the path I've taken, but it is risky because number one, I could change career paths and then that could all be wasted. I could struggle, which first of all means I could struggle with that module, but secondly, if I allocate more and more time to that, I could then struggle in other subject areas where I can't divvy up my time as much. Or I can just live with the regret that, oh, I never studied French to a high level. Again, it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk. I don't know how I'll get on with these optional modules, but I've got my fingers crossed and I've got a good feeling about this. It's all about weighing it up. I mean, I think there's something I'll enjoy, so I should enjoy them. If you're not as keen on taking the risks, the safer option would be to pick the optional modules in which you've already had success in, either at school or at previous terms or years at university. This option may be particularly suited to you if you're struggling to balance your uni work with your full-time job, with seeing people, with doing activities. You might just want to pick the things you're strongest at, and it can help you to get the highest grade possible if that's something you're interested in. Then that might be the right optional module selection method for you. You're also going to want to check any optional modules to see if they either require a prerequisite or are a prerequisite, something you want to study at a later date. What I mean by that is you can't do A-level maths without doing GCSE maths. So is it that it required GCSE maths previously, or is it that that's the GCSE maths for you to do A-level maths? Does that make any sense? Drop it down in the comments below and let me know. Now, if you have a broad idea of what you want to pick, or you have too many choices and you need to narrow it down, these next few tips will be for you. You can start by looking at credit allowances. Every course has a total number of credits you're meant to do, not over, not under, and different modules will be given different credits depending on how much work they are. So the larger a module, the larger the credit allocation towards it. And if there's only one pattern of modules that fit together, or if there's only multiple, you can then begin to look, do they complement each other, do they detract from each other, and base your decision on it that way. If that's the case, brilliant, there's your selection made. Speaking to other people can also help narrow down your optional module choices. Now, this again might be more difficult if you haven't joined the university yet, but certainly from second year onwards, it's wise to consider. It's something Reading do really well. They do intermingling of years through events, so you can go along to events, you can meet somebody in the year above you who's doing the same course, you can ask them, oh, which optional modules did you pick, why did you pick them? And then if there's any that you have particularly in your head, you can ask, did you do those? What's your feedback? If they didn't, oh, do you know anybody who did? You can ask them and you can just get a second opinion on it. It might be that one module's taught particularly poorly or particularly well, or takes a lot of time, or doesn't take much time, or it's you know what I'm saying. You get a general gist of things. You could alternatively ask them what modules they were looking at and decided against picking and why they arrived at that conclusion. Also, in picking your modules, you're going to want to gauge when the assessments are due on them and when the learning hours are. So the module guides, for instance, normally come complete with how the modules will be assessed and how many hours you're meant to locate to each subject at each specific time. Now, this can be split over 2 terms or 3 terms, depending on which university you go to. But as much as it sounds appealing to have 1 term off, you don't want 400 hours, 800 hours of learning all to fall in 1 term, to the point where you've got to do 80-hour work weeks and you've got 15 assignments all due tomorrow. Might be worth tactically selecting your modules to avoid this and spread the work more evenly over the 2 terms. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I mean, you don't want all your module coursework falling in 1 week or 1 day. At this point, if you're still unsure on how to pick your optional modules, I'd advise speaking to your university careers team, as they can probably help you and fill you in on more information. I'm sorry if I haven't brought you close to the answer, but if I have, please subscribe and stick around for more university-based content. As always, thank you very much for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.